guest, okay, again, doesn't come with a BT48 accent, which is wonderful. Dr. Charlie Orton. I just called you doctor, I'm just calling you doctor, okay. And I suppose when we think about recovery, the reality of that is it just doesn't fall down and land on people. It takes a lot of time, it takes a lot of work, it takes a lot of effort, and to be able to change a lot of the behaviours that surround addiction, and they learn new ones to support recovery in the long term. Smart Recovery, as we've heard a few times today, offers a CBT approach to recovery and peer support. And our next speaker is the head of that movement in the UK. Charlie Orton is a very special and experienced individual and has been a friend of ARC's and a supporter of ARC's for quite some time now. She's provided encouraging words when it's been needed, and it gives me a great pleasure to welcome her as the opening speaker of this session to the stage, Charlie Orton from UK Smart Recovery. Big round of applause. The floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And thank you for all staying for the last session. I'm really privileged to be here talking today. So my talk's entitled I Am What I Am, and I'm really proud to stand here on stage today, quite comfortable with who I am, despite the fact that I'm not perfect. I've made many mistakes in the past, but I'm a survivor of a lot of trauma. So I'm going to, for the first time in my life ever, stand up and tell my story. Believe it or not, there are people in my life, thank you. Yeah, I've never done this before. I've never told my story in an open forum. So there are people in my life who have been around for 25, 30 years, and they've never heard my story. So bear with me if I get a little bit emotional. So before I talk about my story, I just want to talk a little bit about the journey that we all go through that helps us to define ourselves and to understand who we are, what we are, and that we're more than that and more than our behaviours. Okay, so the first thing that develops in us is something called self-perception. And self-perception is us as individuals processing and observing our behaviours, our environment, and our experiences, our thoughts and feelings, reflecting on them and learning from them and developing a sense of kind of who we are and what drives us. And the opposite of that is to ignore it all and to bury it. And what happens with that is you lose any sense of self-perception. And that's really troubling and disturbing for human beings. Because when we have no sense of self-perception, it's really turbulent to our heart and soul. And what that leads to is turbulent lives and turbulent relationships. And we form this right from the get-go, from when we're very, very first born, of how people speak to us, how you're held as a baby, how you're put to bed at night as a child. It all feeds into that self-perception, okay? Outside of your self-perception is something called your persona. And your persona is what everybody else sees you as. Okay, so I'm stood on the stage today as the CEO of Smart Recovery, and this might be the persona that I project, a confident woman who knows who she is, so on and so forth. But actually, that's just the persona. That's who you see on the surface. And we're all more than that. We're all more than our self-perception. We're all more than our persona, because both of these things continually evolve over time in our minds and in our hearts, okay? And what you want to end up with is something called your personal brand. And that sounds really weird, because a brand is normally a thing, a business, an object, a logo. And how can a person be a brand? But I am Charlie the brand. I am who I am, and I'm happy with who I am. And that is a combination of all of those evolving over time. And the reason I'm happy with I am is I also accept all of my flaws. And I've made them in the past, and I'll probably make mistakes in the future as well. But you know what? I'll own it. I'll own my mistakes. I'll own any damage or hurt I cause to other people, and I will seek to heal that. Okay, so my story. Here's some little pictures of me and my siblings when I was little. So I was born in the summer of 1976. Everyone remembers the heat wave. And I'm the eldest of 4 children. So there's myself, 2 sisters and a brother. And my mother had us over 5.5 years. So we were incredibly close and we all looked the same. There I am in that top right-hand corner with one of my little sisters. There's the 4 of us sat round a breakfast table at home. And then all of a sudden in 1989, I experienced a lot of adverse childhood experiences, all of a sudden, all at once, because life was absolutely great up until then. My family were reasonably wealthy, we had holiday homes abroad, so on and so forth. But in 1989, everything went wrong in my household. My father, who had been having affairs all through his marriage, discovered that my mum was doing the same, and all hell broke loose. And it happened over 18 months, but it was very, very acute. And because of the nature of those adverse childhood experiences, and in particular some quite extreme domestic violence situations, I was made a ward of court, which is where parental rights are taken away from your parents. And one night at 9 o'clock at night, some plainclothes policemen came to my house and took me away. And I never saw any of it again. And so literally overnight, I lost my family, my siblings, my home, and all my belongings and possessions. And to this day, I've never seen any of them ever again. Okay. What this resulted in was a load of labels. I was labelled with these probably at about the age of 20-something when I was diagnosed with what was going on with me. So I have or had PTSD. The worst label I found was this one, MMD, when a doctor sat me down and said, "You've got major mood disorder." Whoa, what's that? Major mood disorder? That sounds awful. What a horrible label to put on somebody. What does that actually mean? It basically means a dysregulation of how I react to experience and things around me. It basically means that being in fight or flight for 20-odd years means that when something triggers you, it triggers you strong. And you don't just get a little bit annoyed, you get really angry. Or you don't just get a little bit upset, you get absolutely devastated. So that's what that label meant. I had abandonment issues, trust issues, hypervigilance. So because I got separated from my siblings, I was constantly searching, looking. Every street I walked up, every blonde young girl I saw, is it them, is it them? Fear of my father, is that him? Constantly for years and years and years and years, I was in that hypervigilant state and an anxiety and depression. And I also developed quite a bad sleep disorder because a lot of the stuff that went on at home occurred at night. Okay, so then I battled my way through school. I passed all my GCSEs. I was in and out of family courts. I tried to do my A-levels and I failed them all. I was meant to get really good grades, but because of what was going on in my head, I was living with a very dysfunctional mother who was having a prolonged mental health breakdown, and I basically failed all my exams. But the one thing I knew at that time was I had to get away from home. I had to do what all my other friends were doing and go to university. So I went through the clearinghouse and I got out and I went to university. And I cracked on with that as well. Got a 2-1 degree, fantastic. Life and soul of the party, going out all the time. It was the 1990s, the big old rave scene. And for whatever reason, I kind of fell into that partying lifestyle. Substances were all a part of that. And it was great. I was out there, had a great social life. But actually, my degree stopped. And with that, a lot of the social life stopped. I was 21 years old and I hadn't addressed anything. And that's when I had my very first breakdown. How did I know I was having a breakdown? Because I was self-medicating and sleeping for about 22 hours a day. I was getting up in the morning and getting dressed, pretending to everyone I was going out. As soon as they left the house, I'd just medicate and go straight back to sleep. This was my medication for many years. People say you can't get dependent on it because it doesn't cause physical symptoms, but psychologically, that was my comfort blanket, and that's what I did for many, many, many years. Ooh. Sorry, I'm clicking this thing wrong. There we go. What had happened to me was I was essentially living a lie because as I went all the way through my teenage years and all through university, when you meet people, they naturally ask you, do you have any brothers or sisters? What's your family like? And my automatic answer was always, no, I'm a single child. So I forgot who I was. I lost all sense of self-perception. I had a persona, but that was about it. So everyone thought I was a single child. I absolutely hated my mother, which comes with all kinds of trauma and difficulty and guilt and things like that. And like I say, I had this persona, but I had no self-identity whatsoever. I was literally like the cover of a book kind of thing. Like I said, I experienced loads of substances along the way. I experimented, I self-medicated. I can't tell you why. It perplexes me to this day. I'm going to stop questioning it and wondering why, but I've never ended up in what I would describe as like the grip of a powerless addiction. I've definitely been dependent, but I've managed to stop it for whatever reason for myself. I can't tell you why, I can't tell you how. That's just the way I've managed to navigate it all. That's the list there of, if anybody doesn't know what ACEs are, there's a list of adverse childhood experiences that are used when people are being triaged or diagnosed. And if you tick a couple or more than those, then it's a kind of that recipe for having some mental health issues in your life. And I can positively say I probably tick nearly all of those, apart from I don't have any adults who have been in prison. Addiction runs all through my family. I lost my auntie's life was taken by alcohol. My cousins have had their children taken off of them, and they've gone down that really awful and destructive path. So it's all through my family. It's kind of within the nature of our family, because there is a lot of trauma and a lot of dysfunctional parenting, shall we say. Okay, so this is about the space in time that I was in where the perception of me didn't match the reality at all. And you can imagine that tension between who you are and who people perceive you to be. What I was doing was this, and people saw me as being really brave. I was waking up every single morning to fight those demons that have left me so exhausted and so tired the night before. And people saw me as being really brave. This was my persona. Oh, Charlie, isn't she great? She's so strong, she's brave, she rises up to any challenge. I go to her when I've got problems. I'd help anybody. I'd fall on the sword for anybody. I'd put my cape on, I'd come in, I'd parachute in, I'd save everyone and sort everybody out. But what was really going on was this. And most days I did have a smile on my face and I could drag it round with me, no problem. But a lot of the time, this is what was going on behind closed doors. So really, everybody in my life didn't really know me at all. So how did I go about rebuilding myself? Well, when I was sleeping that much, I knew it was wrong. And I knew that, because I wasn't eating, you don't eat or drink when you're asleep, so you actually become quite malnourished and dehydrated if you're sleeping for that many hours a day. But I knew something had to change. I wasn't ready for medication, so I went to see a GP. And that GP referred me to the charity called Mind. Okay, and I was prescribed or given 6 one-hour sessions of person-centred counselling. So given my whole story, how do you imagine 6 sessions of counselling was actually going to help me? Couldn't even speak for the first 3. 6 sessions, how do I overcome all of that in 6 sessions? But you know what my counsellor did, and I don't know how he did it to this day, he renewed that over 10 times for me. So I went to 63 sessions of person-centred counselling. If you just take a moment to think about what that means, that's, say, an average of 1 hour a week. That's every single week for nearly 18 months that I went and sat in a chair and tore myself apart and opened myself up and cried and all kinds of things and said outrageous things that I'd never said before to anybody. I lashed out. I called my family all sorts of things. But it took 63 continuous sessions. And I only finished because I moved away. I moved from Leeds over to Liverpool. And at my final session with that counsellor, he sat to me and said, we never normally have to talk about what effect this counselling's had on me, he said, but it's taken me 60 sessions to really, really understand what the effect that your life journey has had on you and the effect of being separated from your siblings like that in the middle of the night and that enduring effect that it had all the way through. So after that, I felt all right. I'd accepted, assimilated, adapted, overcome all of it. I'd accepted that I'm not going to, that my family are gone. I'd been taught how to grieve, because even though my siblings weren't deceased, I still needed to grieve for them because they were gone from my life and potentially forever. So a lot of that counselling was about helping me to navigate through the grieving process, which is weird when you know they're still alive and living about 2 or 3 hours away somewhere in Wales. It's a bit of a hard one to get your head round. I've also had a load of CBT, cognitive behavioural therapy, which was more about de-stimulating my kind of hypervigilance all the time and reacting to things every 5 minutes or noises in the night, that sort of thing. And then I did actually eventually accept some medication. So at one point in my life, I was medicated in the day and at night as well, because a lot of my trauma comes out at night. I can be great during the day just like this, and as soon as I go to sleep, it all starts to come out. So I'm very combative in my sleep. I would often wake up in floods of tears and not know why. I would wake up underneath the bed, not know how I'd got there. That's something that I used to do as a child. I would sleep on the floor underneath my bed, probably because that's where I felt safe, and that continued as an adult. And then I had another wobble. So my mother was still in my life at this time, but was married to somebody with alcohol dependency, and there was some violence bubbling up in their relationship. And the classic, the abused became the abuser, and it did my head in. I couldn't bear the thought of my mother doing to her husband what her husband had done to her 20 years before. So I then went back into therapy, and I ended up having a further 40 hours of blended psychotherapy. And this was transformative in my life. Somebody sat me down and said to me, "Shut your eyes, Charlie, and I just want you to visualize yourself and tell me what you see." And I thought, this is a bit weird. What do you mean, visualize myself and tell you what I see? So I thought, all right, just go with it, whatever. And I sat there like this, and she sat there. And I'm thinking, when I looked down, which is what you do when you recall memory, and I said, all right, tell you what I see. I said, I'm down there, and I'm really small. And she said, okay, and what's around you, what do you see? And the answer was nothing. There was literally nothing as far as my eyes could see. That's what it looked like to me. I was small, I was down there, and it was like a desert. Nothing whatsoever. And through that process, what she identified in me is that I was trapped as that lonely child, and I'd lost all sense of self and self-perception, and I didn't know who I was, and I didn't have any relationships or anybody that I could rely on or think about. And it was just a very, very lonely place. But do you know what? She nailed it in that minute. By helping me to visualize what I saw in myself as that, really, really helped me. And that hadn't happened at all throughout the whole of this journey. And she taught me about becoming an integrated adult. She said, you're trapped as a child. You're trapped as a lonely, frightened child. And you need to remember that you're the eldest girl of 4 siblings. You're a big sister. You know, you're more than that. You're more than that scared little child sitting there with nothing around you. And she took me through a really clever transactional analysis-based psychotherapy technique. And she took me from being that sad, lonely, desperate little child and pulled me into the adult that I was at the time. Okay. By this time, I'd also done a PhD, by the way, at Liverpool Medical School. Christ knows how that happened, but all that went on all over the surface. Was deep down inside, what I really was that in that top right-hand corner. So what I'm demonstrating there is, I'm a high-performing kind of traumatized sort of individual, essentially, is what it was. But just because I was high-performing didn't mean that it didn't have massive effects. I became an integrated adult, and through that I formed connections, real human adult connections, real friends, knowing who I was. I did loads of meditation and mindfulness. I became a right spiritual hippie. I'd be having flowers in my hair and patchouli oil everywhere and burning incense, but it worked. It's what I needed to tap back into my sense of self. I found myself giving less. I believe you say the word fex here. But I found myself giving less fex, not about other people or the effect I had on them, but less about what you think of me. Trying to be this crowd pleaser all the time and healing everybody else all the time is just exhausting. And I just started to give less of a damn about what you think of me, because I am who I am and I'm happy with it. Okay. I'll jettison the guilt. So as a child, I was made to feel very guilty for my feelings. Even as an adult now, if I feel upset and I express it, I get an overwhelming sense of grief after it, guilt after it. And I really have to work hard on not feeling guilty about being emotional or feeling what I'm feeling. Okay, and I've actually ended up through all of this just developing what is me. It's my personal brand. I am who I am. Take it or leave it. You either like me or you don't. Okay, so I now work for Smart Recovery, and a lot of people wonder why. They ask me if I'm in recovery from addiction. In one way, the answer is yes, but no, but maybe, I'm not sure. But when I show you what Smart Recovery is all about and tell you I use the tools and the program all the time in my life now, because it's what's helped me actually overcome some of the behaviours that I had developed as part of my past. Okay, so empowerment is at the core. I was so disempowered as that young girl and that teenager. I had no authentic power whatsoever. We see the person. We see you as a person. We don't see the persona. We see the person, okay? We see the individual and all the multifaceted elements of us that we are, the good, the bad, and the ugly, okay? We don't judge. We let you be the person you are now. Even if you are still in active addiction, we let you be that person and we accept you as the person you are today, and we help you to become the person that they want to be. But the key to it is we accept who you are today, stood in front of us right now. You may have just used, you may have just drank a lot. We don't care. We see you as you and who you are today, and we help you make better choices and healthier choices for yourself. We use no labels. I listed then a load of the labels that were attached to me by professionals. Flipping hate them. I've got rid of them all now. That major mood disorder is an insult to who I am, because I'm more than that. I'm more than MMD. Okay, I'm a highly empathic person that feels and feels deeply. I have a lot of emotion in me, and you'll see it all the time, and I'll express it without guilt. And we're trauma-informed. We create our own recovery journey. We accept failure and relapses. I'll fail in the future. I'll make the wrong choices in the future. But as long as I learn from it and accept it, that's the main thing. Okay, so all these things are what we do, and connection is everything. Okay. I put this slide and say, why do people develop addiction? Well, do you know what? You can question it all your life. The answer is, does it really matter? Does it really, really matter? Let's just see the person and help them for who they are today. You can question and question and question all your life, but actually sometimes just accepting or adapting and moving on, as Professor Barr highlighted at the beginning of the day, is what we need to do. I've got a couple of case studies here now. I've probably run out of time, so you can read these in my presentation, but this one is Sam. He's at Hailsham Boxing Club. I was going to ask Gaz to read it, but I don't have time, I don't think. I'm probably going to leave it here, but Sam is somebody that uses boxing and exercise as part of his recovery. He was using some substances at a young age, very much stop-start in his recovery journey, and his Hailsham Boxing Club is now just starting to win awards and getting some recognition. So Sam's a smart facilitator, and he's an absolute powerhouse and a phenomenal individual. The second one is Sophie and her mum, who use our Family and Friends programme. So Sophie has supported her mother for many, many years and lost herself along the way. And she uses our Family and Friends programme to understand herself, to develop again her own personal brand, her own sense of self, and to support her mother better as well. She's stopped the enabling behaviours, she's putting boundaries in place, and it's really giving them a fantastic relationship. And Sophie and her mum are so much more than the addiction journey that they've come through. And my final message is, I am what I am, and you are too, and I'm going to play you one of my favourite songs. It's Gloria Gaynor. And I want you to listen to the lyrics, and I want you to take these lyrics with you as you leave this conference and go about your life. And if you ever find yourself questioning yourself and who you are, remember this.
I am what I am my own special creation. So come take a look, give me the hook or the ovation. It's my world that I want to have a little pride in. My world, and it's not a place I have to hide in. Life's not worth a damn till you can say I